Well, welcome everybody. It's Sunday night, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock for those of you on the East Coast, and as for the rest of you, figure it out for yourself. This is Men Off John, and welcome to Painting with Men Off John. Want to thank everybody for tuning in today on Twitch TV. I see already we got John Spencer, and we got Hadmot, and Joshua Kex, and Nevidar. Oh, we must have somebody from over in Europe because Nevidar is wishing us a good early morning. Want to thank Bob Ross for the Painting with Men Off John theme song. We've got a very exciting episode of Painting with Men Off John today. We have a very special guest. We have brought someone on today that has actual honest-to-God painting talent. You may recognize him from the most badass judicator, in recorded history. And his name is Chris Olhafen from Fallen Studios. Chris, why don't you say hi to the folks here on Painting with Men Off John?
Hey guys, how you doing? Good to see you all on.
That is awesome. Well, I tell you what, I think we're in for a really great one here this evening. Chris has really broken the mold for us here on the show by having topics he'd like to discuss on top of just watching me fumble about with a paintbrush. First off, let's do a beverage update. I'm kind of starting to get more into the vibe of embracing some of the crap I used to do on Lost Hemisphere Radio. So we'll have a beverage update. Start off here. Tonight, the first half of Painting with Men Off John is brought to you by New Glarus Brewing Company's Black Top. It is a particularly dark stout. I would guess that's where its name came from, Black Top. So I want to wish each and every one out there a hearty Ron. Hey, Ron! That's right. We're starting the drinking games early this evening. Chris, what are you having for this evening for beverage?
For me, I'm just having a Mountain Dew.
Oh, having a little Mountain Dew. Well, that's a good thing. Keeping with the tradition of our guests not having something alcoholic. At some point, the host of this show should probably dip into that realm as well.
Doubtful.
It could happen. Weirder things have happened. As you can see in front of me, folks out there, the cursed storm guard continue to be a problem. They're not done. I'm hating painting these things, to be honest with you. The whole unit thing is kind of my bane. So, what are you going to be working on this evening, Chris?
I am working on a new battle engine. I have the top all ready to go. It's sculpted out a bit. I added more wiring for armature, and it's just going to have a little bit more smoke clear than the last battle engine I did.
So, explain to the crew out there exactly why you are having to make a new battle engine.
Well, for those that follow the Muse on Minis podcast,
come on, say it.
You guys might have to have a drink here before I even talk about it.
Say it. Come on, work with us here. Why would you have to be doing that?
Because I did something nice.
Oh, well, it also could be because John Damaris' house burned down. Hey, drink!
There it is. Well, I wanted to make sure people had the drinks ready before I just jumped into it.
That was excellent timing, and you're like a podcasting professional already.
That's right. I try. But since the ice has been broken, yes, John Damaris' house burnt down.
Hey, drink!
Again, everybody.
This is well on its way of being episode 18 of Lost Hemisphere Radio. That did not end well, by the way.
So, along with his house burning down, time to drink again.
Hey! Great! This is, wow. I'm glad I got a fresh 12-pack of beer in the fridge.
There you go. He was able to get his children, his wife, everybody out safely.
Yeah, all the important stuff.
His men off models, they held the line and took the brunt of the attack, and unfortunately he lost all of his models.
Turns out Menoth not as fireproof as people think it is.
That's right. I think the cleansers were okay, but everybody else went down in flames. But so what we did as a community was we all got together We each had a specific segment of models that we were going to paint up for this, including Privateer Press staff. They even did a one-off model of Fiora for him. We basically banded together as a community, and for my part, I did him a battle engine, or I gave him my battle engine, and some zealots, full unit.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that battle engine is a thing of beauty. If you haven't seen it, what would be the easiest way for people to find that if they search for it on like Google Images or something?
Actually, let me put it up. I'll put my all my photos are on my Facebook.
Okay.
So I'll just post that in the chat so you guys can look for it there.
Cool.
There's a bunch of painted stuff. If you guys haven't seen my Judicator or any of my other flame effect models, you can check for it there.
You also did an article, did you not, for No Quarter Magazine?
I've done a few articles for No Quarter. The last one that I did was Where There's Smoke, and that was a tutorial on how to sculpt realistic flame effects and then also magical flame effects. And beyond just sculpting it, how to paint them as well.
Awesome. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, folks, I'm bringing you actual credible talent this time, as opposed to me dipping a brush in paint and smearing it all over stuff. So, it actually is a pretty nifty segue. One of the things I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about was some of the sculpting stuff that you had done. And why don't you talk to us a little bit about the differences between gray stuff and green stuff?
The main difference for me, I always used to use green stuff, and when everybody starts, I think everybody hears about green stuff. They barely ever hear about gray stuff. They think of it as the redheaded stepchild or the poor man's green stuff. So, because it does cost a little bit less. So, with gray stuff, it does have its strengths. But for beginner sculptors, I would definitely go with gray stuff. The reason for that is green stuff, it's extremely sticky. It'll stick to your tools. It sticks to the models pretty well. The main problem with it is it's a little bit harder. It's not so soft on your tool. So when you are going over an area multiple times, your tool will end up getting stuck in it like a quagmire. And people end up giving up sculpting a little too early when using that. With gray stuff, it is a lot softer to work with, and it's a lot less sticky. One thing I always recommend people do before sculpting is, number one, wash your models. Soap and water, simple green, whatever you guys want to do. And also wash your hands to keep all the oil off your hands and off the model. One thing that tends to happen, whether it's with green or gray stuff, is you put that putty on there and it'll just keep sliding off. A lot of people tend to use water when sculpting or when they're first starting sculpting, and that only exuberates it. It only quickens that process, and before you know it, the stuff that you were putting on there is all peeling off.
Okay, that's interesting. I had a point there for a second. I was going to make mention of the fact that having something soft on your tool is a good idea. I personally will come out in favor of something soft on my tool 9 times out of 10. That 10th time, I'm not sure what I was thinking.
Yeah, 10 times out of 10, I definitely give that 3 out of 3 hats.
Excellent. The whole podcast community could not possibly be more self-referential.
Yeah.
So you like to use the gray stuff because does it stay kind of malleable for a little bit longer? I know green stuff, at least for me, it tends to harden up a little bit, kind of quick. Of course, my green stuff might just be older than dirt too.
No, it's absolutely true. It does harden quicker, and it also tears quicker. Let's say it's less malleable later on.
Interesting.
So what happens if you're going over an area and you're trying to still work it and bend it?
This is going to be the most double entendre ever in a podcast, So when you're trying to flex it and bend it, anyway.
Yeah. And then when you whip out your tool and you're rubbing it, make sure you have proper lubrication.
Well, I'm just looking here in the chat room, and Salatza finds that ethanol to be useful for cleaning miniatures. It dries quickly, evaporates, and dissolves the grime. I also find that ethanol is excellent while you are sculpting. Hey, Judicator. All right.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Anything that'll really get the oil off, and the main reason is it's not just when you're sculpting. It's also, you guys might have heard me talk about this on Lost Hemisphere. I went into detail on this as well. I'll keep it short here. But when you first get your models, when you're first putting them together, I always wash my models first. I put them in like a little bowl with some simple green, some water, and I have either a toothbrush or a little scrub brush, and I scrub the shit out of those models. Now, what that's going to do is when they first come out of the mold, there is going to be a mold release on those miniatures, and some are always worse than others, but still that slight film will keep the glue from sticking. So sometimes when you're putting your models together and you're like, damn, this glue isn't worth a damn, it's not working, I'm going to have to get new glue. It might not be your glue. It might be that mold release is still on there, and it's if it's taking longer than 10 seconds to set, then you've got an issue. So I always wash those models first. Another thing that green stuff is good for, I rarely pin my models anymore, is when I'm putting those models together, after they're washed, I'll put a little tiny ball of green stuff in that join.
Yep.
This does not really work for gray stuff, only green stuff.
Okay.
But you put a little bit of green stuff in that join, and then you put that super glue on the other end of that part.
Yep.
Let's just call that part B. You join that part A and part B, and it causes like a cement hold on it. For plastic miniatures, I've had arms snap before the green stuff bond actually snaps.
That's actually a good point. Last week's show, I went into some detail. My camera couldn't possibly be pointing in a worse direction. I got to point it more towards my gut here. There we go. Now people might actually be able to see. Now I'm going to hit the thing here. But I was talking a little bit about that green stuff glue type method, where you use that green stuff as a hold it so that so you don't have to sit there and wait for the glue to set forever and a day.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Yep. Well, that's good. I mean, and you say that does not work for the gray stuff.
No, not as well. The green stuff, I still use green stuff for whenever I'm doing my joins, I guess you would call it.
Okay.
I don't really pin, but I mean, there's very, very few things I pin. But even when I pin, I'll still use the green stuff and super glue trick. Yeah,
I almost never pin, and the only time I ever pin is generally if I've had something break. And like you, I actually had I think it was a Phoenix. It was one of the Retribution plastic kits that I'd done the green stuff glue method on, and because I am awesome, I put the left arm on the right arm and the right arm on the left arm, and I tried to pull it apart and snap the arm completely off. It broke the ball joint and did not break the bond where the where the glue and the green stuff was. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened to me. Usually they'll snap at the elbow, and the joint will still be there.
Yep, exactly. Cool. So we've kind of talked a little bit about putty and some of the different things there. What else did you have on your list there? I'm sorry, I kind of suck at remembering.
No, it's all good. Actually, I got something here for Ed Defoe.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
No, Chris, we revel in mispronouncing people's names on this show, so no worries.
All right. Well, he was asking any starting tips for airbrushing. And I do airbrush quite a bit, especially for object source lighting. It tends to work very, very well. Some of my basic tips, I use a Wada Neo. It's a pretty cheap airbrush. It's $60. This is U.S. currency, of course. And with that, you could get really, really fine sprays out of it, and you could do large areas. So either or. But as far as for consistency, I started out using water, and that didn't work too well. to thin. Just like normal, I thought it would be the same, but it ended up clogging too much. So I use almost entirely Windex or Simple Green, and then the paint. And the paint usually ends up being maybe 30% paint, and then the rest either Windex or Simple Green. And then what I do with that is as I'm mixing it, I mix it into a cup first. I'll take the end of a brush, I'll dip it in the mixture, and I'll tap it to the side of the little cup that I'm mixing in. And if it starts sticking to the side before it runs down, then I know it's the right consistency. If it's just like water and it'll just run right down, what will happen is when you put it through your airbrush, it'll have what's called a spidering effect, where little beads of paint will run everywhere instead of actually staying on the model. You do want it to hit the model and dry instantly. You don't want it to be all wet and dripping down.
So that's when you see the spidering, that it means that you've got too much dilution in it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I've really been, I'm very new to the airbrush as well, and I actually I broke my Iwata Neo twice, and then I said, I'm doing something wrong here, and I know I want to have a good, maybe a little bit pricier because I'm an idiot, airbrush. So when I was at Adepticon, I purchased a Badger Chrome, Krome, and
those are awesome.
Man,
those are awesome.
That's what I just airbrushed, base airbrushed unit of Avengers in about 10 minutes. And what I found was that on the Badger Chrome, now maybe you can help me understand if I'm doing this wrong or not, but the needle part, should the tip of the needle be flush with the orifice coming out, or should it extend a little bit past?
It should extend a little bit past.
You see, that's what I was doing wrong, Chris. I had, when it came from the factory, of course, they shipped it with the needle pulled back a little bit. And I thought it was all pre-adjusted and ready to rock and roll, and I was wrong. And what ended up happening was it kept on clogging. And then once I pushed that needle forward a little bit so that it was maybe not quite dead all the way forward, then it was spraying like a boss.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Yeah, I pushed that needle forward pretty far. It is a little bit past the tip. I mean, you can't go too far past because of the, I don't know how to say it, the angle, I guess, or how it's
it's got
to really go too far past, but you just got to leave a little space, but that needle should be past that tip.
Yeah, it's got a little taper to it, and if you have to, at some point the taper on the needle bottoms out on there. There's an O-ring in there, I guess, and you end up if you hit against that O-ring, then it stops. But I hit it up against it, then I pulled it back a little bit, and boy, it was spraying like a boss then too.
That's awesome, and the best part about airbrushing is, I mean, it really simplifies everything. You're not going to have to blend, especially with things like object source lighting, where it takes a lot of manual time if you're trying to do it manually. But what you can do is, for base coating your miniatures, or hell, even shading them, let's say you're working with a red, or something has a lot of flat area, what you're going to do is if you're doing red, let's say you start out, you airbrush the entire thing a dark red, and then what you're going to do is you just airbrush from a 45-degree angle down, or even straight up and down. So you're only hitting the top. You do it with a much lighter red, and that will auto-adjust, and it will only hit where the light's hitting and leave the creases dark. That way, that's a whole lot of messing around you don't have to, worry about. And then all you have to do is paint the details.
Okay, so let me kind of rephrase this and just kind of paraphrase a little bit so that I make sure I understand. Like downstairs right now on my my assembly desk, I've got that unit Avengers, and I've base coated the whole stinking thing with Sanguine base, and I've got a good dark, I've got a good full coat on the base with the airbrush. Now what you're suggesting is I might take that Sanguine highlight and come at, let's say, a consistent 45-degree angle and just let her fly, and that should auto highlight the model.
That's correct, and it's pretty cool too, especially if you're looking at the plates on. I know you're talking about the Avengers, but let's say the Warjacks, they have for Menoth, they have those plate shields.
Yep.
Where they come out in an angle.
Yep.
If you're spraying those from the top down, that top plate will actually, let's say if you're doing the top down with Scorn Red, that top plate will be Scorn Red, and that bottom plate will be shaded that Sanguine base right at that angle.
Interesting.
As long as you're holding it at the correct angle, each plate will have that effect, which is really, really nice. Another thing you could do too is if you have a piece of plastic card, if you cut it to the right shape, you could use that to shield certain areas of the model, especially on, let's say, the Reckoner. They have very symmetrical shoulder pads, and they have really sharp edges, I should say.
Yep.
On each of those edges, one edge you could do with that brighter Scorn Red, and the other side will stay a little darker like that Sanguine base if you put that plastic card right up to that edge and just spray. So that plastic card is keeping any overspray from going over.
Interesting. That sounds really cool. I'm going to have to try that technique, Chris. I'm totally having you on here so I can pick your brain on airbrushing, because while my initial airbrush ventures have turned out okay, I know that there's a lot more I can be doing with it.
Well, we learn by our scars. You know, I've screwed up my Iwata so many times now, but I've had to take that entire thing apart. I mean, I've taken everything apart on that thing now, and I've really learned quite a bit about it. But that's why I suggested Iwata, because you know what? If you're just getting into airbrushing, it's a really good cheap one. So if you end up, well, fucking it up, you could dismantle it. You could learn a little bit more about airbrushes, because they're all going to be dismantled the same way. Yeah. And that way, you're not fucking up a $300 airbrush. You're screwing up a $60 airbrush.
So let me pick your brains. You bring up a good point. Couple points I want to bring out is that, first off, the airbrushes are pretty robust, except for the needle. The tip on that needle bends when you look at it wrong. So be very, very careful with the needle point. And if that needle is not nice and sharp and centered, your spray pattern will be all balled up. You won't get it to work right. The other thing I wanted to pick your brain on a little bit is you mentioned that you've had yours apart, at least once. How do you clean your airbrush? Because, part of the reason why I know why I broke my Iwata is because I took it apart, and I knew that's why I was completely disassembling the thing. And I think I was doing that unnecessarily. When you're done painting for the day, how do you clean up your airbrush, Chris?
What I'll do is I'll just spray some Simple Green through it first. And then what I'll do is I will take the needle out. I'll take the needle protector off the front, and then I'll take that front housing off. You don't need to take really anything else out. It's just just the needle and those front two pieces. I put those in Simple Green. I scrub them, and then what I'll do is I'll put, after those are all clean, I'll just take the needle and put it back in without putting the needle guard or the other part in.
Okay.
And what I'll do is I'll put it under water, and I'll just move that needle back and forth through that front chamber that holds that needle tip.
Okay.
And what that'll do is that'll loosen up any other paint that would be in there. And I just put it under water. So as I'm doing it, you'll see a little stream of water coming out that tip, and then you know that everything's out of there. And then I just I don't put it together right away, because I don't want anything to any calcium deposits or anything like that from tap water to get on there. So I just put it on my gaming table, all unassembled. I blow it out. God, that sounds bad. I blow it out just with my mouth, and then I just lay it on the table. A lot of people, they have a little ultrasonic cleaner, which works very well. If anybody has a girlfriend or wife, or had a girlfriend or wife, when they go to the jewelry store and they take that ring and they put it in that little box, and magically it comes out super sparkly, you're like, oh my God, whatever that shit is, it cleans the hell out of it. It's awesome. It's not really what's in it, because it's a water-based chemical. It's the actual cleaner. It's an ultrasonic, a bench top that size. They're not too unreasonable price-wise. I have to get a new price, figure out exactly what it is. And actually, I'll post that on my Facebook. But that thing, the smaller the area, the more clean it gets because it actually uses sound waves to clean.
Awesome.
So the smaller area, or the smaller the area, the more clean it gets it. And
Awesome.
that's how I would recommend cleaning the airbrush. Now, I haven't done that myself. I'm sure most people that's just doing this as a hobby, they're not going to run out tomorrow and get it. But eventually, that's the way I want to do it.
Cool. That's super awesome. Yeah, you're not the first person to me that has mentioned to me about the ultrasonic cleaners. I, too, have not looked into how much something like that would cost. You know, at some point, though, when you're looking at this, you're in the other strategy I would have as far as airbrushes is concerned is that I know that the Iwata Neo and some other Iwatas are also, and some Badgers I think as well, are available at Hobby Lobby. And Hobby Lobby routinely has a coupon for 40% off on the internet. So you can go on there and get 40% off your airbrush and get 40% off your compressor. And I got a little air separator for my air as well. And I just bought it one piece at a time so that I could save that 40% each and every time. And then when I went,
that's awesome.
And then when I got my Badger, I was at Adepticon, and they routinely run a special at Adepticon where they have like 50% off of their entire line, and that works out pretty slick too. So I got a $200 and some odd airbrush for $100. They also had a super sweet deal where they had their entire line of airbrush paints, which are pre-thinned paints, for $85 or something like that. But they all sold out before I could get my hands on it. Made me sad.
Yeah, they have great deals, man. It's great.
And, you know, if you want to think about it another way, too, Badger is made here in the United States. They're actually made in Illinois, right down the street from me, I forget what the exact location is, but I know they live somewhere near Ben Lang, who, if you may or may not have heard his name, he's kind of a big deal in his meta. He's no JVM, but he recommended Badger to me. That's what he uses, I believe. So I'm real happy with mine. I'll tell you that. But you're right.
That's awesome.
For a new person, that Iwata Neo is bomb diggity because it's not that expensive, and you can kind of discover for yourself if airbrushing is for you. Some people it might not be for everybody, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing that keeps people from airbrushing is just. This is what happened to me anyway. I mean, I guess I'm gifted with the brush, but even me, I was scared shitless of using the airbrush, you know. But it's just like anything. You're going to suck balls, you know, when you first start something. You just got to push past that and just have your willpower, to do it. I mean, take over, and you just keep trying it until you get it right.
That's right. Here at Painting with Menoth, John, we advocate sucking balls. You got to suck balls if you're going to be on this show, because that's how we roll. Speaking of which, Convergence is coming out soon.
Ooh, you love the cock.
I'm all about the cock. But I don't know if I'm going to get any cock, to be honest with you.
I'm probably not. I really like the Clockwork Angels, but other than that, I don't know. I just got to still learn my Menoth before I hop into another faction.
Boy, that's a smart move. I had such faction ADD when I started this game, and as a result, I was good at absolutely none of it. And you're better off to start off and get familiar with a single faction, I think. And I struggle even going between Hordes and War Machine to this day. I can't switch my brain from the focus mechanic to the fury mechanic and back and forth. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. I really have number one, I have a hard time playing regardless. My work schedule just doesn't allow for it too much. So what I try to do is keep it as simple as possible, just stay with the one faction.
Yep.
I know that's hard for a lot of people. I mean, everybody wants everything, but you know what? Nobody's good at everything. There's a reason why you know, the guys that are really, really good stick with one faction for a while. And there's a lot of people that say, you know what, this isn't working for me, and then they jump factions. It's like, well, with the with all the tools that factions have now, and with all the different warcasters and combinations between units, you could really do whatever you really want with any faction that you want.
That's straight up truth.
It's just up to you.
That's straight up truth. I'm going to interrupt you just for a second here, Chris. Bafo put in a really interesting YouTube link. Bafo, if I could ask you to be so kind as to copy that over to and post it on the Painting with Menoth John Facebook page, I would really appreciate it. People can then go there and take a look at it because the chat window here is kind of transitory. Thank you, Bafo. I appreciate you agreeing to do that. But it's what the link that he put up there is for anybody interested in a nice airbrush and other painting tutorial. So some tricks and some ideas. So appreciate that very much, Bafo.
Yeah, Bafo, you're awesome.
He's the bomb. He's epic mustache. He's the number one mustache on Painting with Menoth John.
Hell yeah.
So, all right. So I've got to share something with the viewers that I did for a good buddy of mine out in California, Chris, whose daughter was diagnosed with diabetes. So I'm going to ask Chris to if Cookie's watching, this is your 5-second. 5-second warning to get her away from the computer. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Cookie, you've got to be gone. Go chase a cat or something. I want to put up on the feed here. This is what I painted for her because she's very brave and awesome. And I'm going to see if I can get it up a little bit closer to the camera here, and I'll put the autofocus on. See if I can get it to work here. I did a Haley 1. She said she likes pink. So I did a pink Haley 1 for her. And it turned out super sweet. Do you have the feed up? Are you looking at it, Chris?
Dude, that's very sharp. Very, very sharp.
So it turned out better than I possibly could have hoped. Turns out every now and again when you try to do something nice for a person, inspiration strikes. Oops, wrong way.
That blending looks great too, man. You did a really, really great job on that. And I love the base.
Yeah, that's a Dragon Forge design base. And she turned out super sweet, and I'm so happy. Her face, it actually turned out as one of the better faces I think I've ever done. So you're asking yourself, Self, how did I do the armor? That is a white primer. And then I went over the top of it with, first I airbrushed it with Carnal Pink. I did the whole model, just turned it pink. And then I looked at it and went, well, that's really, too light. So I mixed up a little formulation that came up back in the day when I was starting to do my Signar. And the formulation is I take 2 big brushfuls of water, maybe even 3. And then I go ahead and I put some mixing media, 2 or 3 drops of mixing media, and then I put some Future Floor Wax, like 3 good-sized drops of Future Floor Wax in it, and then I put just a bit of Murderous Magenta, and I just washed it, the whole model, and that's how that turned out.
That's just like how I do my object source lighting when I'm doing it just by brush. I always use Future Floor Wax. Very high concentration of water and Future Floor Wax, and it flows so good.
Now, when you're doing the object source lighting with Future Floor Wax, is that in your airbrush?
Oh, no, that'll clog it up real quick.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't want to do that.
No, that's just when I'm manually doing it with a brush.
Okay. So that was the Haley for Cookie, and I got to get that in the mail probably tomorrow so that I can get there for her birthday. It's got to go to Los Angeles. Or thereabouts. I'm excited.
Dude, that's awesome.
She's a very brave young girl. She's just turned 5, and she loves her the Signar, and she especially likes Haley. So I was like, and he was having a difficult time getting his hands on one of the alt sculpts, which is what that one is. That's the alternative sculpt, the Haley 1. And so I was like, I've got one of those sitting on my rack, unpainted, and I don't play Signar that much. And Signar Jake tends to like playing Stormwalls, and she's okay with Stormwall and stuff. But I can get him another one. So I decided to do that for Cookie. So that's the Cookie Haley.
Dude, that's fantastic. And that is, I mean, I love that E. Defoe said that it is the reason why, our community is so good. We do take care of our own. We all step in. I love the privateer press community. I used to even work for Games Workshop for a very, very long time. I used to run one of their districts, and this is, I mean, it's night and day. It's completely different. I love privateer press, and I love the community.
Yeah, it's a good community. I mean, once upon a time I was a press ganger, and we've covered on the show why I'm not a press ganger anymore a couple of times. But I still enjoy community building. I don't need the extra stuff that goes along with it. I mean, I think it's awesome that the press gangers get the free stuff and all that. But I still enjoy making sure people are enjoying the game. And the poor girl, she's 5 years old. She's got diabetes now, type 1. She's gonna have for the rest of her life, or until God willing, they come up with a cure for it. And so she's too young right now for a pump. So she has to get the shots. And talk about brave. So I thought that I would that'd be something nice that I could help out my boy Chris with, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy it, and she's going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's funny how you get to know people that you haven't even met, like you and me. We've never even met, Chris.
Yep, that's true.
The power of the internets.
Yeah, it's good, especially when everybody has a common goal. And that's great. Like you were saying, it is a great thing about the internet. You get to talk to people that you normally wouldn't talk to.
It's cool.
Feel free, guys, to reach out to me as well. I mean, even though you've never met me, I do like helping others. Now, I'm not too good at doing commission work because I work like 70 hours a week. But if you want any help painting something or just want to get on Skype with me, I mean, you could definitely do that. I love helping people out.
Totally not just for porn anymore, although it's still pretty good at porn.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see what else we got here. So
I got a lot.
So I'm still slogging through these. God dang, Stormguard. We're into the extra special second half hour of Painting with Meneth John, still being brought to you by Blacktop, New Glarus Brewing Company's Blacktop. It's a superior beer at 12 full ounces. What's next on your list there, folks? There, Chris, what do you got?
All right, this is what I got. I have, this is how I like to paint. A lot of people ask, they're like, well, how the hell do you paint so fast, for one, and how do you make it look good? It's because I keep it uncomplicated. I know that sounds weird. It looks like what I do is complicated, but I've been painting since I was like 8 or 9 years old. I'm 37 now. So with that, I've learned more than most people. But in that time, instead of continued learning, I've really found the style I like, and I've really just tried to simplify it. So for the basics, this is what I like to do. When I start out, I base coat. I do it very similar to people that dip, but this is a little bit different.
We're not talking about chewing tobacco here.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is like dipping with like army painter.
Gotcha.
I don't dip stuff, but my one friend, he did show me a model that he dipped, and I used to paint on a model for 70, 80 hours.
Holy hell.
Before, and now I could do it in about 2 hours, the same effect. He showed me this army painter. He dipped a bunch of his little Space Marines, getting back to GW, this is back in the day, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe it, just from dipping it. He did one color, dipped it, and then did the details, and that just blew my mind. So his name is Dwayne Zoldak. He's he changed my life when he showed me that. So what I've done is I do my base coat of every single color. I'll do the metal. Let's, for instance, metal. I'll do the red. I'll do the metal. And I don't start at like a dark red and then work my way light. I'll work my way at the mid-tone. So if I'm putting a red on the model, it's either going to be like the Cato red base or Scorn red. For the white, it won't be completely white. I'll do a mid-tone white, like a bone color. And then for metal, I do like a chainmail color. And then for a gray, I'll do like a brighter gray. Because what I do next is I'll do the wash. Now, I use almost exclusively all P3 paints, except for I use Devlin Mud before it went off the shelf. Yep. I bought a shit ton of it. That stuff is liquid talent.
Oh, no doubt about it. That stuff is talent in a bottle.
Yeah. And John Spencer, yeah, Dwayne Zoldak, he's a close friend of mine.
Well, John Spencer, John Spencer, in case you weren't aware, former GW guy too.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I used to run Ranhurst and Gurney, and then also helped him set up the Battle Bunker. That's the era when I worked there, is before the Battle Bunker was even there. But yeah, Dwayne is awesome. Well, what I do is after all those base colors are done, I'll go over with a wash, and the new wash color is Agate Earthshade. That's the closest to Devlin Mud, I believe.
Yep.
I still use the Devlin Mud, but I'll Devlin Mud the entire model. I'll make sure it's saturated. And then after doing that, what I'll do is I'll re-highlight with the original base coat color. So you'll have that new color, and then you'll have... I don't color jump. I don't do like 4 different shades of color. It just looks unnatural. So I'll have that original color that's darker, and then a light version of that color.
See, this is very similar, Chris, to how I do it as well. This is very
awesome.
This is very interesting. Continue.
That's awesome.
Please continue.
All right, excellent. And then what I'll do is from then on, it'll look like a pretty normal model, but then in the time that I saved just by using the wash, I'll spend that time doing details. So like I'll really gem up eyes, or I'll really lighten up a couple parts of the models to make it pop. And what I mean by that is you want to draw your eye around the model. If a model looks too monochrome, or if the model looks, all the colors are pretty similar, it's not going to draw the eye around. So you have to lighten up or change something, whether it's brighten up a weapon, or brighten up the base, or brighten up like the tips of the shoulders, whatever it is, to make sure that eye is drawn from top to bottom, or bottom to top, or left to right. Remember, you're not looking at these models close up. They're on the tabletop. And if they're on the tabletop, they're a good 3 feet away from you, or 3 to 5 feet away from your opponent. And to really make them pop, you have to have that contrast, whether it's color contrast, the green and reds, or brightness contrast, which is darks to lights. I take everything that I do off of canvas painting, and if you look at canvas painting, everything goes from complete dark to complete light. So even after that wash, what I'll do is there's certain seams or joins, and I'll even paint like a dark brown or really watered down black, or even more wash into those areas to darken those even more, to make those brighter areas stand out.
Yep. You know what I found, too, is to help with that standout, one of the last steps I do on a model is I do some black lining. And I don't do a ton of it. I just do a little bit of black. What I mean by black lining, for those of you who maybe haven't done it before, is I'll use Armor Wash from P3, and I will take that into if you look at the model I'm painting right now, when I get done with this, what I'm going to do is right along this seam between the gray and the gold, I'm going to lay down just a single line of black. And what that does is that really highlights the depth that you get. And, that's not something you're base coating. That's something you're doing after the fact, just kind of like what you're talking about, Chris.
Right, exactly. And I'm trying to read Banyan on here, and I'm just reading through the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a 45-degree angle on the tip. It just sounds like you're using the tip too much. What I'll do is for almost.
Yeah, you don't want to use just the tip. I mean, there's going to be nothing satisfying about your job if you only use the tip.
Yeah, you don't want to just play.
You got to get that whole brush in there. You got to just give it everything.
You have to have full penetration.
Absolutely. You can't just be mucking around with the tip. You got to put it in there.
What I like to do is I'll put brushing on it, or I'll put the brush on it. And what I mean by that is, I'll just slap it on the piece.
You got to slap it on there.
A lot better.
You got to give it a little bit of the business.
That's right. Yes, exactly what Bafo says. It's the side of the brush.
Yep, I do a lot of that. I do a lot of work with the side of the brush.
That's exactly it. I don't usually use the tip. I'll just use the side of the brush. The reason why that is if you're trying to use the tip, you'll end up getting squiggly lines. I guess there's no real better way to say it, but it is like a uneven or squiggly line going down the model. Now, if you use the side of the brush when you paint an edge or something like that, there's nowhere for that paint to go because you're resting that brush on the highest surface, so it's only going to pick up on that highest surface, and it won't hit into any of the grooves.
Yeah, and you got to think about the fact that the paint, while you might thin it down, you're going to keep it thin with keeping your brush nice and moist. If you the paint still needs to kind of flow down the brush a little bit. So you've got to make sure that if you get it on the side, it's going to flow down off the brush a little bit better.
Right, and what's important is, if you notice, John does put his own brush into his mouth and to keep it moist.
I don't stick
his brush is long enough to do that.
I do not stick my brush in my mouth.
Oh, I think you do.
I stick other things in my mouth, but not my brush.
Okay, he sticks his brush in.
Dude, if I could do that, I would never leave the house. My career would be over. I would be a hermit. And then I would die 3 days later due to lack of food. Anyway, wow, that went to a weird place all of a sudden. Anyhow,
yeah. All right, well, back on topic.
Back on topic. This is we're not trying to be crippled system here.
Yeah, Edifo, you got it right, and that's exactly what Menoth John is doing right there. He's doing like that tripod. Now, what's important is what a lot of people won't notice is what he's doing with his pinky. I know that's going to sound weird.
No, that's okay. You can talk about that pinky.
Any joke or anything like that, all right?
Yeah.
This is not picking anybody up like a bowling ball. This isn't anything like that. What he's doing is, I do have shaky hands a little bit, and the way to counteract that is exactly how Edifo was saying. You tripod your hands on that table. And then what I do is I'll usually touch either my pinky or another finger as well onto that other hand or onto that model directly. So if one hand moves, the other hand is also going to move.
Yeah.
That way, if you do have shaky hands, it's almost like a moot point because it's not going to be shaking because your hands are going to be shaking together.
And I do have shaky hands, but when I put that pinky down onto that base and I've got the other hand resting on the table, I've anchored. Now I can use my muscles, and I can do gross movements, but get very fine movements at the tip.
Yes, that's correct.
So
anybody wants to write that down. That's how he works it.
That's right.
Motion in the ocean.
Yes, exactly. I make sure I anchor my pinky so that I can use gross motions to give my tip fine action. God.
All right, awesome. Okay, so
this is obviously
that I wanted to cover.
Obviously, we have no Mormons on the cast as we usually do. The morality has gone completely away in this one.
Yeah. All right, now the next thing that we're going to do is what I like to do is if people are painting glow effects with an airbrush or object source lighting, we touched on that just a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
People always wonder how I get my lighting so bright. Is what I'll do is I'll paint that area white before I do anything else. And then what I'll do is I'll go over with a extremely light color. Like, for instance, if I'm doing a glowy green, I'll paint that whole area bright white as best I can. And I don't do one thick coat. What I'll do is a lot of light coats until it's as bright as possible because you want the paint to remain thin. You don't want anything ever looking clumpy. And then what I'll do is, with that airbrush, I'll hit it with a necrotic green, and the airbrush puts it on so fine that it glows. I mean, it's extremely bright when you put it on there.
Yep.
If you look at my Facebook, feel free to friend me. And if you have questions on stuff, I'll even send you more pictures. I mean, message me anytime, seriously. But I have pictures of my cricks. I never played a game with them. I'm just working on doing some. And I was just working on glowy effects, and that's what I used first as a test bed for that.
So now, for those of you who would like to friend Chris, you friend him under Fallen Studios on Facebook, correct?
That's correct. It's Fallen Studios Painting,
and it's just one word, Fallen Studios. It's all smeared together. Cool, awesome. This is like the most useful painting advice ever given on Painting with Menoth, John. Usually we're just mostly about shenanigans. This is actually good advice we're getting.
Dude, your show is pretty fun, so it's cool. All good.
Appreciate it. It's not like I spend much time on it. I promise you that. Just sort of happens. It's very organic.
Yep, that's right.
T-minus 10 minutes to releasing the Kraken. We got a very special releasing the Kraken tonight too.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, so for those of you playing along at home, I have 2 of these stupid Stormguard left to put gold on, and I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm going to this is a pro tip. One of the things, if you really want your models to make kind of a leap in quality, spend that time after you go through a color and you've done maybe all the color of that unit. Go back and touch up all your splatter and part where you may have gotten a little bit, let's say a little bit of gold onto the gray or so on, and get that, especially on armor plates, you want that nice and those delineations nice and crisp. Because if you don't do that, then, armor is supposed to look like it's got crisp lines. And if you just spend just a little bit of time cleaning up those lines, you'll be amazed at how improved your models will look. I got to tell you, I got to wear this shirt that I'm wearing more frequently for Painting with Menoth, John. It's my Black Sabbath 1978 tour shirt. Not like I was at their show in 1978 because I bought it at Target because, vintage, retro, whatever. But you can't see my gut, which I'm feeling really good about that. Nothing worse than people out in podcast land having to stare at my lack of physical, prowess on the internets. All right, so we're doing good here, guys. So what else you got on your list there, buddy? Since you're
all right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover weathering.
All right, yeah. Tell us about that mud effect that you do on so many of your models.
It's pretty easy. Usually, if there's an area on the model that I don't like, or if there's an area that I jacked up, I throw mud or blood on it. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
But the way I achieve it is the way I achieve the effect is I will take a toothbrush and I'll put a mix of 30% black, 30%, or maybe 40% brown. And this is any color, black or brown. I don't care what paint that you use. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be like a really dark brown. You're going to mix that up, and then you're going to put that, and then the rest water.
Okay.
And I use a toothbrush. And this could be done 2 ways. You could use a toothbrush or a large brush. Okay. Not like super large, like a tank brush or anything like that. You'll use just a regular large brush, or if you're using a privateer press brush, it would be a large studio brush is what they're called. But what you'll do is you'll take your toothbrush, put it in there, and then using your fingers, you can flick it. You can practice it with water first, but spring those bristles back and then let them go, and it'll flick the paint in all different kinds of patterns. Now, I don't care where the paint goes because you sort of want it realistic. as realistic as you can. So if I have wording on something, or if I have, gems or anything like that, if there's some really special piece I don't want to keep unmudded, I'll do that. But I don't care. I'll splash mud on it regardless of what previous work I put on the piece.
Do you tend to hold the toothbrush, let's say, below the model, pointing up, so it looks as though the mud's splattered up from the ground?
No, if I'm doing the first mud that I'll put on is I'll do it angled downward because I don't want mud splashed up on the face because it'll tend to spray quite a bit.
Okay.
And so I'll do that. Now on something larger like a Warjack, I'll use my hand and I'll cover up the face and chest area a bit, and then I'll spray it up so it gets under, the backs of the knees and such. And then what I'll do is, if you're using the brush method, that's usually pretty useful for blood. And what I do for my blood is I'll mix Scorn Red with brown ink. And you could mix to taste for the most part, but that's probably the best way I've seen of doing blood. I don't know what issue. Never mind, I can't talk about it. I'm not going to get into this. But you might see something pretty soon somewhere about how to paint blood.
Lance, edit that out.
Yeah. And then, but then what I'll do is, with that large brush, you dip that in the red. I mean, you could do either the mix of Scorn Red and the brown ink, or you could just do Scorn Red, dip it in there in the brush, or dip the brush into the Scorn Red, then flick it, almost like with the paint or with the toothbrush, but with the regular brush. Now, what that'll do is give you a very fine mist. It'll give you like a streak almost of blood. So, or mud, whatever you want slung on your models. It's best for doing shields, or if you're having it on a trooper so it doesn't look like somebody exploded in front of them, you're going to use the brush method instead. And then I'll put that on my Facebook. I'll do examples of each kind. Actually, I have pictures saved to my computer too. I'll put that on my Facebook.
Awesome.
That way you guys can see the example of both. And if you do want to do the unmixed version of that Scorn Red and brown, you could just do the Scorn Red by itself and then paint brown ink inside of the Scorn Red, and that'll really darken up that red, and it will make it look really realistic as far as blood's concerned.
It'll make it look almost like it started to dry almost, right?
That's correct.
Gotcha.
That's my favorite blood effect, and it looks like I spent a lot of time on it, and I really didn't. And that's when people go, "Oh, Chris, you're an awesome painter." I'm like, "No, I'm really not. The paint chipped on this area. I really didn't like it, so I just covered it with blood."
Shh. Ancient Chinese secret, baby.
That's right.
Okay, Edifo has a question. He wants to hear about weathering pigments.
Weathering pigments. Now, those are interesting. I don't usually use too much, but weathering pigments, it's not just weathering pigments that are good. The regular pigments are good as well. The best thing about the pigments is you could put those onto the model, and you could use a Q-tip and water or a little bit of alcohol, whatever you want to do, and take off areas that are oversaturated with the pigment. For instance, if you're doing a big area and you accidentally got some pigment onto the flat areas and you really wanted it in the cracks, you could take that off. That's the best part about pigments. What's really good, it's not the weathering pigments. What I find the most beneficial, because I think the toothbrush handles it mostly, is doing skin. In the creases of the skin, if you get like a dark red or a purplish pigment, what you do first is you put a glaze, like a triple thick Krylon spray glaze. I always gloss coat my models first. But you're going to gloss coat the area. You paint that purple. Of course, you just dip your brush in there into the pigment, and you just go over the area multiple times in the cracks with that purple. And what that'll do is it won't have any streaks. It won't have anything. It'll just look like the best blended shit you've ever done. but it really gives your models life, especially living ones.
Oh,
Painting that purple pigment into the cracks, and Special Weapon Miniatures has quite a bit of those.
So now, what is a pigment? I have not used pigments, so I'm very I'm interested in them. I've heard about them. Tell me, is it like a powder?
Yes, it is like a powder.
Okay,
it's like a chalk almost. So when you're putting it on, I don't use it for really weathering. I just use it for skin tones.
Okay.
Like you'll start it in the crack, and what you'll do is you'll just brush it out, like just give it a side-to-side motion out down the forearm, or if it's in like the shoulder joints, you just bring it into the crack and up the tricep or up the trap and then up the deltoid just a little bit. And then what you'll do is if you get too much on the model, it's not a big deal. You just take the reason why you gloss coat it first is you can go over it with water or with something else or alcohol on a Q-tip and take it off those spots without it removing any of the paint.
Okay.
And then after you're done and that pigment's set exactly where you want it, because I mean you could literally just remove it if you don't like it, and the model underneath will be protected. That's why you gloss it first, but then you spray it again over that, and that'll seal in those pigments, and then you're good to go on the next step.
And so do you use a dull coat then for that second coating?
No, I'll gloss it again. And the gloss that I use a Krylon triple thick glaze.
Okay.
And I put that on first, and then I use. Everybody swears by the Testors dull coat. I used to use Testors all the time, but I haven't been able to find Testors, and I got the Anti-Shine by Army Painter, and damn it, that shit works awesome. You barely need to spray any on a model, and it just flats it straight out. It's awesome.
How does it do as far as protecting it? Does it give you enough of a shell so that you don't have to worry about your paint's getting chipped?
Nope, that's what that Krylon triple thick glaze is for.
I see.
Triple thick glaze it, and then put on a dull coat afterwards.
I see. So the gloss actually gives you the hard shell protection, and then the dull coat that you spray on there just helps you. It keeps it from being just a big shiny thing.
Yep, that's correct. That's exactly.
I understand.
What I do.
What an interesting technique. I hadn't tried that. I use a Vallejo, and I'll put it up here in front of the camera. Here we go. Okay, so I actually use a brush on matte varnish by Vallejo, and I love this stuff. The nice thing about it is that it's certainly not going to work for the technique like you just described, Chris. But what I like about it is that it does. I've had problems in the past with Testors dull coat and other spray-on dull coats, kind of sapping the life out of my colors, either by fogging or other things like that. And the Vallejo, because it's got a lot more liquid to it. You don't have to be nearly as careful with it. You can be a little bit more, dare I say, sloppy with it, and you never lose that color. So it works out pretty slick that way, I think. God, am I actually going to get all the golds done on this? It's 9:04. By gosh, by gum, we got a little bit behind here. It's time to release the Kraken, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight's releasing the Kraken. I've got a special shot glass. Today, we were going through the house, and we were cleaning a lot of stuff out of the basement. We're going to be doing some renovations here at Casa John. And I rescued this very ancient shot glass with two monkeys on it with their tails wrapped around a branch that says bottoms up. So that's funny because their asses are up. Ha! That's good stuff. So that's going to be the official shot glass of Painting with Mouth John and releasing the Kraken. So we're going to put a little Kraken here in the bottoms up shot glass. That's a nice little dollop right in there. So, for those of you who are out there, whether you're drinking an alcoholic drink or not, here's a little Ron for you. Bottoms up! Mmm. Delicioso. Look at that color.
I can taste it.
Oh, you can probably smell it through the internet.
Oh, I can. What I think is the best, though, is you literally threw down that model when it was time to read.
Oh, hey, priorities, baby. Okay, so and now another special new feature here on Painting with Menoth John. Another thing that we found here while I was looking through here is the Big Dummy's Guide to CB Radio. So back in the day, this is going to shock a lot of you that a geek like me came from a kind of a geeky family. My dad was really into CB radio. And so he got me this book, which was sort of like CB radio for kids, which is kind of a despairing thing when you think about it, that they would want to get kids involved in CB radio. And I thought that it might be fun to read an excerpt from the Big Dummy's Guide to CB radio during the Release the Kraken section of the podcast. So tonight I'm going to read to you it's kind of a troubleshooting section, Chris, on what to do if certain things happen to your CB radio. And tonight we're going to cover symptom number 9, smoke comes out of the top of the rig when turned on.
Uh-oh.
What to do? 9, by all means turn it off. Pull the plug. Check to see what size fuse is in the fuse holder. It should be no more than 6 amps for a tube radio and no more than 3 amps for a transistorized radio. Check the polarity of battery connections in a mobile. Check to see what the negative and positive wires are hooked up right. If you're using an external speaker, make sure that none of the wires leading to it touch the chassis of the radio or the body of your vehicle. After disconnecting radio from the power, replace the fuse with one of the proper value. Check to see if any of the screws or mounting bolts touch components inside the radio. If polarity was reversed, try out the rig again. If the fuse blows again, there is probably a blown diode or transistor. So that's what to do, folks. If your CB radio at home should happen to have smoke coming out of the top of the rig when you turn it on. This will be a regular feature. The Big Dummy's Guide to CB Radio here on Painting with Menoth John. My favorite part is the rabbit on the front saying, "Break, break, I got my ears on." See, it's funny because he's got big ears. Hick, 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 you got a copy? Come on. Who doesn't love that 1970s CB radio talk? I'll tell you. Bottoms up. There. Now that we've released the Kraken, and Edifo says, as an electrician, that was funny. Hey, Ron, I saw that. Hey, Ron. Woo. I got a little bit left. I kind of released the Kraken kind of fast tonight, Chris.
That's okay. That's okay.
That Kraken usually lasts all the way through the last half hour of the show, and by God, it's all gone.
So that Kraken is released when it sure the fuck wants to be released.
You damn Skippy. It doesn't take much to release my Kraken, let me tell you. Ask any of my ex-wives. Yes, that was plural. Okay. So, I got one more of these damn Storm Guard. I'm very excited about this. These Storm Guard are getting close. Unfortunately, I'm going to... I should probably have a section on where is Menoth John going to be next week. Because I travel a lot for business. I work for Starbucks. And next week, Menoth John will be starting his week on Monday, in Reno, Nevada. So any of you who might be out there in podcast land, I will be in Reno, Nevada on Monday. And then I will be going to Seattle for the rest of the week. So starting on, actually I'll be in Carson City, Nevada on Tuesday. And then in the evening on Tuesday, I'll be flying up to Seattle for the rest of the week, coming back to Wisconsin on Saturday. So if you are in either Reno or Carson City, Nevada, or Seattle, drop me a line. Say hi on the Painting with Menoth John Facebook, and we can get together and hoist a beer or release the Kraken. So be glad you only drink rum. You know, I'm drinking rum until this damn bottle is gone. And then, allegedly, my sister, God bless her soul, she lives in beautiful and fashionable Columbus, Ohio, has got this god-awfully huge bottle of Kraken. that is at her house and she doesn't know what to do with it, so she's going to give it to me. Now, that's what love is all about. So, Chris, now that I've talked about booze and things other than painting for a while, what's next on your list of discussion of topics?
Well, number one, the Kraken needs its time.
Oh God! Oh yeah, hello. It's part of the podcast. You can't be having
That's
that.
Right.
And we had the Big Dummies Guide to CB Radio, so we know that if we see smoke coming out of our rig, that we should unplug it.
That's correct. That's a very good tip. You don't want to ignore that.
That's absolutely correct.
You could have saved somebody's life right there.
For me as an engineer, when I see the magic blue smoke leave a piece of electronics, I know it's time to replace that piece of electronics.
That's correct.
I don't care how many 6-amp fuses you put in it; it doesn't matter. It's probably dead, and especially if it's one of those transistorized kinds of electronics. That's some good stuff right there. Okay, so we've released the Kraken. We've talked about 1970s CB jargon, and what do you got? What's on your list next to talk about, Chris? You've really brought a level of excellence to the podcast that is not expected. Let's just put it that way.
You might say it's unparalleled.
It is unparalleled. We are one of the top 2 video podcasts on the Mom Network.
Ooh.
One of the top 2 video podcasts on the Mom Network. Now, there's only 2 video podcasts on the Mom Network, but we're one of them.
I think we're the best one.
Oh, I'm not going to say that, but we're one of the top 2. I'll give us that.
Oh no, I'll say we're the best.
I don't want to be boisterous. I don't want to take anything away from those other guys. They're doing a stalwart job in their early podcasts. So, what's next on your podcast list that you've got there? The things that we should talk about.
All right, this is what I got. I have now, as everybody knows, I spend a lot of time painting, which generally means I don't spend too much time playing. Now,
I thought you were going to say too much time dating.
Well, the only one I can date is my wife. So
they need dates too.
We date pretty good.
They that's good to only date your wife. I hear that the alternative can lead to expensive problems.
Yes, it could.
Okay,
but it's what I really wanted to cover is, as I could talk almost as a beginner as far as playing. I had played previously in Mark 1 quite a bit. Our shop had shut down. I was unable to find another group to play with. I actually brought the models down here to Kentucky when I moved from Chicago, and I was going to sell them. I tried selling every single one of my Menoff models, all in for $300. Nobody would take it. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and what I want to cover is I started reading up quite a bit about the game. I took the models out of the rack that they were in for sale, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care. After reading a bit about what's changed, I'm like, this game looks awesome. I don't know how I could have gone without it. I don't care if nobody plays. I'll have that lonely wargamer syndrome, and I'll just play around with them with my wife, if it comes to that. So I started reading, learning tactics, listening to podcasts, and one of the things that I really came to learn and look at is I used to do a lot of chess. My dad played a lot of chess. It's just different strategies. I started playing again, even in my first tournament. I went 3-1,
woohoo!
And so that's pretty good. I've been playing quite a bit more lately, and since I paint so much, I've made a really focused effort not to spend all my time painting and just to play, because I got to get better. It's a all-in hobby. I mean, it's not just playing, it's not just painting. It's both aspects. So I'm trying to have that kind of balance.
Agreed.
And things I'd like to cover. I'm sorry for that intro. That was pretty long, but
oh God,
things I've learned,
dude. The whole internet just collapsed because of that.
Yeah.
No, that was good stuff. That's a lot of people are like that, Chris. I mean, let's face it. Mark 1 in retrospect was fairly unplayable, and
right.
and we played it anyway. God, how did we do that? Anyway, but yeah. So you've come to some new realizations. Now let's talk through where you are today.
So what I did was I looked at different ways people were playing. I watched a lot of people in the shops play. I've read a lot of books. I've put the stuff that I've seen into action, stuff that I thought that looked like it would work. I mean, some of it worked, some of it didn't. Of course, it's all based on the opponent, but there's a lot of things that people aren't doing as far as just general basics of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that they'll set up, and it takes them forever to set up, like they've never set up before.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing. But people that play a lot, they shouldn't be having that issue. I think that comes down to a lot of faction hopping.
I agree.
People aren't familiar with their models. And another thing where it comes down is there's a lot of people that go to dice down in tournaments. And I think a good way to fight that is practice. I mean, just like any sports guy would practice, just like any salesperson would practice their pitch. Whatever you do, you should practice on it. It's the same thing with the game, especially it's not all about winning at all. It's about having fun. But if you are...
Thank God it's not all about winning. I'd feel really depressed.
Yeah, exactly. But if you are in a tournament and you're looking to do well, and instead of people complaining about dice down and different ways, whether they should extend how much time they get, or look at what they're doing first and the reasons why it took them so long. So here's some of my recommendations.
Oh my God! Wait! Stand by. Painting with Menoth, John. This is tech. You're getting your dose of tech. So listen up. I don't want to hear about there not being any tech on this show. There you go. Go ahead.
That's right. Here's some good tech, and a lot of it's going to come down to your first deployment. When you're first deploying, here's a couple terms. It's packing and unpacking. You look at a lot of guys that win tournaments. Watch some of their YouTube videos. Watch some of the ways they have their army set up before they start playing, instead of listening to the banter. I mean, which is fun. And looking at the mid game, look at their start of the game and look at the end of the game. The most important part of that start of the game is, unless they're playing an extremely melee-centric army, they're going to have a very, very tight brick. And still in those melee-centric armies, they try to keep them as bunched up as possible. There's a lot of people when they first start playing, or even they've been playing for a while, they just look at different units and say, you know what, I'm going to have this flank here, and I'm going to have this flank there. I mean, it's not that big of a table. And then you're not going to have support of your Warcaster, things like that. Try to break them up as much as possible. And you have to look at what to brick next to each other in that initial starting group. So you have a very small starting area. You're going to pack it all depends on personal style, but you're going to pack movement units together. You don't want a very slow moving unit in front of a very fast-moving unit, because you can't move models through each other unless you're using somebody like Xerxes or somebody that's able to give their troops those abilities. You're going to have to look at your bases clipping your other bases. So, or if you have a Warjack out first, you're not going to put a speedful Warjack up front, and then you're going to put Daughters of the Flame behind them, that are much faster, because all you're going to do is screw up your own movement.
Except that Daughters are acrobatic and move through them.
That's true. You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, though. Nope, I know what you're saying.
No, that's good. That's good. But just practice.
Point well taken. Point well taken, though.
Yeah, just practice putting all your stuff together. I don't have Daughters of the Flame yet. That's one of the only things from Menoth I don't have, so that's my bad. But, I'll put my Bastions and my Crusaders together because they're both speed 4. And then I'll put my, Flame Guard, Zealots, whatever, with the Reckoners and other, faster models.
Yeah, and when you think about it, if you play like an Efiora, she gives you a lot more options because she can make those jacks faster too. So you can get those jacks to move a little bit quicker.
That's correct. Yep. But basically practice setting up and practice, unpacking your stuff or your first turn. And do that over and over again. That way you're very familiar with your units. You know exactly, and it shouldn't really matter who you're playing against. Fuck it. This is War Machine. Make them adhere to what you're doing.
Yep.
Put your dick on the table, so to speak.
That's really good advice, Chris, because a lot of times I think that's something that new players especially make an error on, and that's that they allow themselves to react to the person they're playing against instead of taking an aggressive stance. And I think that is maybe not touched on a ton on some other podcasts. That's a big hurdle for a newer player to get past, is the fact that you've got to be aggressive. If you're playing a reaction game, you're going to get alpha struck, and when you get alpha struck, then you don't have a game really anymore.
That's absolutely correct. And there's something about that first turn of the game, and you put out your stuff, and you cast all your upkeeps and have everything down to a science where you can do it all within that, maybe even 2 minutes, maybe even 1 minute, because you've done it so many times with that unit of or that brick of troops and jacks. That's the opponent. It fucking flips them out because they're like, holy shit, okay, and then they spend all their time trying to figure out what they're going to do, because it sure as hell looks like you know what you're doing. It instills, confidence, or gives you an air of confidence, whereas it takes away from yours.
Yeah, they're spending their turn time thinking about how to counter what you did instead of thinking about what they can do to you.
Yep, absolutely. And E. Defoe, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, that's great. I'm definitely down. I need some daughters badly, but the next thing that I have up is your movement. Practice exactly where stuff's going to go. Always have arc nodes. If you don't want an arc node, that's fine. But if you have arc nodes, make sure you know what their role is going to be, and make sure you know what role each of your other units or jacks are going to take. For example, like your Vanquisher. I'm speaking mainly of Menoth because that's what I play. I'm not going to try speaking about something I don't know of because John's just going to slap my dick like he did with Daughters of the Flame.
Not at all. I will not slap your dick, but I will correct you if I catch something.
No, that's good. I'm just playing with you, dude.
I'll slap your dick, but it ain't going to be on the internet. Woohoo!
But, for that, let's say if you're using a Guardian, or let's say if you're, using, let's just say you're using a Guardian. Yes, it's a heavy jack with an arc node. Yeah, it could get beat up, but you're not going to send that in as your frontline jack to beat shit up. That's going to be your second line jack because you're going to need that arc node later on in the game to be able to, arc. So you got to think about things like that. I see people just throwing units out there for no reason. For that Vanquisher, look to see if there's any really high defense units on the table. If there are, that's a good matchup for that Vanquisher because with those blast templates, you can do some hella damage because you don't need to hit them directly because those high defense units generally have very poor armor. Another thing that you should think of as well is you should look at your end game. You should look at, once you get to mid game, you should look at the table and try to visualize, okay, what do I need to close this gap? Not necessarily go for an assassination. Let's say their Warcaster's pretty far back, you can't get to them. Say, okay, well, in this feat, instead of trying to line up that assassination, which people try to line up assassinations for 10% kill chance, it's ridiculous. Say, okay, well, I'm going to use this feat to wipe out these two heavies. And then later on in the rounds, when they don't have enough to be able to counter you, then you're just slowly crushing them and steamrolling over them. Just look at what you want those units to do later on in the game and make sure you have enough of them left and not throwing them piecemeal at an enemy that's going to tear them apart when you could use them later on in concentrations to take them out later on.
Awesome advice.
But just know the matchups of your units. Practice that deployment. If you do have an arc node, protect it. Even if it is, I know I think there's only 2 heavy jacks in the game right now that have arc nodes.
Yep.
But, if you do have that or have a light war jack with it, don't just throw it away unless it's, Chris, because you'll probably have 3 of them out there.
There is that.
Those other armies, they're only going to have 1 arc node usually, so make sure you're defending it, because in the middle of the match, your opponent's going to forget all about it, most likely, because they got all their stuff going on. But play with confidence, and that's basically what I've learned in getting into the foray, and I've been winning quite a few games just thinking like that.
Well, that's some great advice, Chris. I appreciate that very, very much. And I know that our viewers and listeners also have appreciated that very, very much. Another thing that I'll throw out there is take a look at endgamegaming.net. So that's all smeared together, endgamegaming.net. That's put out there by a really awesome guy by the name of Matty K. He's from the St. Louis area, I believe. And he does an amazing job of covering the competitive circuit on War Machine and Hordes. And he puts videos up. He sets up tripods with GoPros at the major events and videotapes a lot of the Masters tables and finals tables. And I'll tell you what, getting a chance to, like Chris was just talking about, with that, setting up your brick and unbricking it, and take a look at the interaction between the scenarios and the way that they set up, especially for people like Jake Van Meter or Keith Christensen or Chad or any of those guys that you may have heard of on the national scene. It turns out they're a big deal on the national scene because they're good at this game, and looking at them and how they set up, getting that setup correct is an awfully a big deal. So, hey, I think we're getting pretty close here to wrapping up the show. I want to thank Chris for coming on here and breaking loose a lot of knowledge this evening, a lot of good, great painting and sculpting knowledge, as well as some awesome tech there at the end. And I very much appreciate you coming on here, Chris. I hope that you'll be my co-host again sometime real soon.
Dude, absolutely, sooner than later.
Absolutely. Sometimes my usual co-host, Adam, has some family requirements that he has to take care of. He's only got like 45 kids, so sometimes he's pulled down by that, and he just has a very young one. And Nevendar, I have to agree with you, sure was an interesting cast this week. We're going to continue to try new things and get different people on here, but Chris, you are always going to have a place here. Anytime you want to come on, we're more than happy to have you here on Painting with Menoth John.
Thank you so much, guys, and remember to add me on Facebook as well.
Absolutely, it's great to have you on here, and I think that with that, we hear the music playing in the background now, and we're kind of moving into a mellow mood here. It's 9:28 here in the Central Time Zone, almost 10:30 where Chris is. And I'm going to wish a very, very hearty Ron to each of you out there. And keep on painting. And we'll see you next week on Painting with Menoth John.